long that we've done any kind of interview, but I think it was important for us since the NCRB suicide report has just been published for the year 2021. Joining with me is Amit Lakhani, who represents the Men Welfare Trust based out of Delhi, also one of the defendants in the Delhi High Court marital rape trial. And we are here to discuss about the numbers from a gender analysis point of view today. To begin with, no life is less precious than the other. It will be very unfair to say so many men versus so many women. But I think if the numbers were reversed, the debate would have been echoed in on every media channel by now. Let me first share what are the numbers. The numbers for NCRB suicide data says overall men are at 118,000, that is 1,18,000, versus women, which is at around 46,000. And if you look at the numbers for married men, that is pegged at 81,000 versus married women, which is around 28,000. So, Amit, what are your first thoughts when you read this report this time?
Anaz, I would say at the outset that we as a nation should actually be really shameful for the fact that we are topping the charts when it comes to suicide, and the country and the governments and we as a society, we are just sitting at it. And in fact, not just 2021 data, for the last over a decade, if you see, it has been very alarming, and you see a very dangerous increasing trend of specifically male suicide. From the previous year itself, the male suicide has increased by 10%, which is a very large number. So I would say that this is something to be really ashamed of, and the governments, the present government and even the previous government, they've been doing nothing about it. And life of a man, life of a common man in this country, it seems, has no value at all. And unless it is a case like Sushant Singh, or a celebrity case, nobody even talks about suicides which are happening each minute here in India. In fact, the data's what the data also mean that every 4 to 5 minutes there is a man who is dying by suicide, who is giving up his life for some or the other reason. And there aren't enough helplines, there aren't enough government schemes, there are no studies which are happening, there is nothing that we are doing about it. And the youth of this country is giving up on their lives, and the period of their life that they could contribute towards the growth of the country, towards the GDP of this country, they are so engrossed with the the societal problems, that they feel that suicide is a better solution than fighting it out.
And that is a very unfortunate way to also look at it. And as you rightly said, when it comes to mental health for women or any kind of challenges which are faced by women, we have several platforms which are catering to their problems, or at least, they do have some kind of an avenue to, go and share their problems. But when it comes to men, there are very few people like, NGOs like you on ground, or perhaps Voice for Men, which is kind of putting out these stories. But I mean, in a country like India with such a vast population where 50% is men, we really don't have any, channel which addresses the challenges that they go through. And that is why the result that we are seeing, that year on year, the number of male suicides is on a rise. And unfortunately, nobody discusses or debates about this from a gender aspect.
In fact, Arnaz, if you see the when the NCRB report was out and there was some media coverage around the suicide, if you go through all these media coverage, they analyze everything. All the data about the suicide, the number of women committing suicide, and the reasons behind it. But no section of the media actually highlights that the male suicide in India is more than 2.5 times the female suicide, and the reasons of male suicide and the rate at which this male female suicide index has been increasing for the last 10 years. Nobody wants to talk about it. When it comes to the suicide of a man in India, nobody even wants to talk about it. Men are actually taken for granted. The governments have been taking men for granted. They know the votes are in any case coming, so they know that men are going to vote either on religion or on caste or on something else, but not the fact that whether something is being done for the welfare of men or not, whether the suicide or the other issues that men are facing in this country, whether they are poor health facilities for men, whether it is about declining expectancy of men or whatever. There is nothing being done as far as welfare or the schemes for men are concerned. So the government also knows that men are never going to think about it, not going to vote on these issues. They are only going to vote on other things, and just they just leave out on all these issues, which are very, very important issues. Had it been, you're right, had it been the other way around, had it been this increased number of women committing suicide, then it would have been a debate in the parliament the very next day. And
In
you see
fact,
what is
it
happening.
was very funny to read one of the portals. They did an entire article on saying how the numbers for women were underreported, but not a word on the number of men committing suicide. So, I mean, this kind of shows the mindset, that we have in the mainstream media today, which is, not even addressing how many men are dying. They're again focusing on maybe the numbers for women are underreported, so we need to, tweak the report because somewhere they feel that, oh, this kind of, men versus women ratio does not really suit the agenda that they want to drive.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that also brings me to this whole methodology, adopted by NCRB over the years. It's not recent, where there will be specific categorization of dowry deaths, or if a woman is dying by suicide, it will always be highlighted that how she was a housewife. But whenever it comes to the men and the reasons given for suicides of men, you would see it is often linked to the profession that they are associated with. So either he would be a daily wage worker, or possibly he's an unemployed person and he committed suicide because of unemployment. But the whole fact that we are completely dismissing any kind of family related issues, or the problems that he's facing, which is a result of family problems. I mean, what do we have to say on that? Because you, Amit, on ground, how many men are actually dying by suicide because they are either getting threats by wife or their in-laws of criminal cases. If there is a 498A on his parents, there's so many people who have left suicide notes saying that we can't see our parents behind bars and that is why we are ending lives. uh, so many men who have been alienated from their children, they get into this whole suicidal tendencies. So NCRB doesn't really analyze these parameters. So how do we really bring out these issues?
Arnaz, not just what you are saying. In fact, I will add that in the recent times, you must have, in fact, you yourself covered so many cases of husband burning and husband killing. There have been upteen number of cases in the last 2 3 years where the wife actually killed the husband, or the paramour was involved, or the husband was, his drink was spiked and he was burned. And there have been so many reported cases where they were. So we reached out to the NCRB regarding this, but what they have to say about this is that there is no separate category of crime. For example, if a woman within 7 years of her marriage, there is a unnatural death, that will come in the category of a dowry death. But in case a man, he suffers an unnatural death within 7 years of marriage, the law is not gender neutral. So they will just put that in murders. They will not put at there is no spousal murder kind of a category. So until and unless there are laws for men, they will not have a category, because they are actually it's a crime bureau record. So if there is no crime, if there is no specific crime such as cruelty towards husband, so there will never be a category. Now there is a crime of cruelty towards the wife, So there is a category where they can put that. There is a crime such as dowry death, so they can put that particular death in the dowry death category. But for men, there are no such categories because the law do not protect them. The laws themselves are not gender neutral. The laws do not categorize these as crimes, so there will never be a category. So that's the reason that all these suicides, they put in the family problems, and then the family problems reason, the suicide reason, family problem has alarming a percentage of about 32.7%. And then if you add love affair and marriage related problem, it is a whooping, I think, over 45%. So almost 50% of the suicides which are happening, the male suicide, they are around the family issues, marriage problems, and love affairs. So you can imagine that what a big problem this entire thing is that we are dealing with. But there is no discussion on this. There is never been a a debate or anything on that issue. In fact, that's the reason, Arnaz, we've always been saying that there has to be a constitutional body such as National Commission for Men, which which is not just about talking about the false cases, which is going to actually take care of all these aspects, all these things that are related to men's issues, whether it is men's health, whether it is suicide, or all these issues that we're talking about.
And that is exactly the point of debate, Amit, because socially, when we are sitting and discussing these topics, everyone, the first question they'll say, Are, how many men are dying by suicide? Or how many men are getting murdered? Are, jab you don't have a category only, for crimes against men, like you have a category of crimes against women, how will you even, compare the two? Even in terms of domestic violence cases, when you don't have data on how many men are suffering domestic violence at the hands of their wives, how will you even justify that this gender suffers more than the other? So I
Absolutely.
guess
When a
that is
man
where.
cannot, when a man cannot actually reach out to the court or the police saying that I've been subjected to domestic violence, when the law itself does not protect the man, it is not for the men. So there will never be a data about cruelty against men or domestic violence against men, or spousal murders where where husbands have been murdered. We will never have those data.
Absolutely. And that is why, you always see debates of how crimes against women have increased. But you need to report data on the other gender also. I mean, if you're not doing that and if you're only looking at one gender, I think that is very, very unfair. In fact, I don't know if you saw yesterday or day before yesterday, there was a tweet by one of the feminists, very prominent feminists. So there was a case, I think, in Karnataka where a husband had landed up in the police station in a matrimonial dispute. He came out and he attempted suicide. So this lady, she tweets saying, "Oh, is he committing suicide to scare the family of the woman and her parents?" So this is the kind of approach, even if a man is committing suicide, I mean, you are saying you're linking it to, him having some kind of wrong intentions to scare the wife. But if it's the other way around, we all know that, you don't even need a Twitter to arrest that man. So, or the woman rather.
I
So
would say,
this is
another,
again,
you don't even need to be a feminist for this. In fact, the entire society, has this uh, what do you say, a male hatredness, or misandry, that you call it. That when a man would die by suicide, people always say that he was an escapist. He could not handle things, or
weak,
he was a
ignored.
loser, or yeah, or he was probably guilty, so out of his guilt he did this. And when a woman in the similar circumstances, she dies by suicide, she is a victim of suicide, you always say that she was a victim and she did not get help from the society. The society start feeling guilty for that woman's suicide themselves. So that's the kind of bigotry that's there in the society, that for a suicide of a man we have a different kind of treatment, and for a suicide of a woman we have a completely different way of thinking. So unless we ourselves change our own way of thinking towards somebody giving up on his or her life, we cannot expect this the even the judiciary to be gender neutral.
In fact, I was discussing with one of a gentleman, and he said that this whole narrative that a woman, a homemaker, does more work than her husband who is working at office. He says, "Do you realize what are the kind of pressures we go through at office?" Because he says, if a woman, if she's working and if the boss maybe even shouts at her remotely, she can, at the drop of her hat, just resign and say, "I'm not going to work anymore. I can't take this." But as a man who is the provider for the family, he says we can't even think of doing that. So you are suffering humiliation at work. Coming back home, you are constantly, told, oh, you need to do the housework, or you are not contributing enough to the household work, and you can't even leave that job, which perhaps is bringing food to the table. So he says this is where the problem lies, and somewhere the men are, kind of getting so frustrated that they have no platform to go to, and these could be very very genuine reasons that they take these extreme steps, because they don't have any escape from the real life. Unlike women, women can always step back and say, oh, I want to pursue my hobby, I will leave my job and I will do that. But a man today doesn't have that choice. So that is one of the reasons, that also could be leading to these kind of suicides.
Absolutely, Arnaz. This, this whole protector and provider role, under which the a male, when a boy child, takes birth in an Indian family, he's brought up in such a way that this entire burden of the social and a financial burden that you have to take care of the entire family's uh, financial burden and everything. This actually is a lot of stress for the men these days. And you're absolutely right. He in fact not even can come back home and say that I'm being humiliated at work, or I don't want to take up this job anymore. I don't want to continue this job anymore, because if you say this, then you are not a man enough. Then you are good for nothing. So you are neither this way, you are not that way. So yes, there are these pressures, and in our on our helpline also, we get almost every other day we get calls from these men who are feeling so helpless that they say that where do we go, where do we actually go and share our apathy, and where do we go and tell our problems. So there is absolutely no platform where these men who are distressed, they can actually go and reach out to somebody, talk to somebody, or there's any redressal for them. And that's one of the biggest reasons that we are seeing this sharp rise in the male suicide these days.
Also, suicide, of course, is one of the most unfortunate things that any family can go through. But
Right.
we've also seen, extreme injustice when, let's say, a woman is dying by suicide. Her husband is picked up, his family is picked up without any suicide note, any evidence. He's just picked up and he's booked. But we have so many cases, and one of the recent case from Odisha, where a man, he's actually left an entire suicide video on 5th May this year. He's actually shared all the details, of how he was harassed and tortured by his in-laws, and still there is no arrest. His sister, his brother, they're running around courts. It's been now almost 3 to 4 months, and there is no arrest. And the police says that they are not directly responsible. So, there is no justice for a man even after he dies. And this is how shocking the situation
even
is.
even in some cases, if there is an attempt to arrest, we have seen so many instances where even after the husband's death, there have been harassment cases filed against the husband's family members, even after husband's death. So these laws are being misused left, right, and center, that even after the death of the husband, there can be a situation where the wife goes on, and just to defend herself, she would go on and file a dowry harassment case and other cases on the husband's family. So and you're right, the police, if you actually go there and they say, you ask them to lodge an FIR against the wife, they it's not easy to do that actually.
In fact, there was one case I remember from Gujarat a couple of years ago. Again, the husband had written a suicide note where he blamed his mother-in-law for harassing him for alimony for her daughter. And he had clearly written that she was constantly harassing him to pay 5 lakh rupees and all of that. And after that, he committed suicide. The Gujarat High Court actually put a stay on the mother-in-law's arrest because they argued that alimony was the legal right of her daughter, and demanding alimony was nothing which was against the law. So again, you see, a man's death is of no consequence, but the woman's right to her alimony, got more weightage in the High Court.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's how the system works, and that's the harsh reality of uh, the entire judiciary and the whole ecosystem these days. That a man is actually treated as an ATM machine, whether it is in 498A cases or the domestic violence cases or the divorce cases. He is only treated as an ATM machine, and there is an attempt that if the marriage did not work out, as much money as possible should be extorted out of him, as as alimony. And this is one of the reason that a lot of guys, when they face all these cases, uh, they the situation derives them towards giving up on their lives, and a lot of them, because of all these pressures. In fact, when we get calls from victims, we see a lot of them in suicidal mode, because of the sole reason that they are being demanded such an amount which they can even not, they can't even think of paying in their lifetime. So that pressure is always there, apart from the defamation, apart from the hardship that they are going to face, while they're fighting these cases, this entire pressure that they will have to pay up so much sum to get out of this relationship, and they've done nothing. Despite of that, they will have to pay up a huge amount. This is something that puts a lot of pressure in, and suicide comes later, but the kind of impact that puts on the psyche of that person, about on the mental health of that person and the entire family, is actually unimaginable. So a lot of victims are actually going through mental health issues and psychiatric issues because of all these pressures, when they are falsely accused in all these cases, whether it is a false rape case or it's a false dowry harassment case or a molestation or a sexual harassment case. So the kind of impact that it puts on your psyche is so negative that a lot of them, they feel that it is far better to actually die, give up your life, than fighting out this case where you are termed to be guilty from the day, from the day one.
And the way we look at, the government's approach, we really don't, see any kind of response or any reaction from them. And they're completely like, blind, or at least they're pretending to be blind to what is happening with the men in our country, while, the whole narrative of Nari Shakti, women empowerment, is on full swing. Uh, what is the advice, as a closing thoughts that we can give to the younger generation? Because see, whoever is trapped is trapped. You cannot, undo things which have happened, and they'll have to suffer the current matrimonial laws which are in place. But what is the advice that we can give to the younger generation today? And somewhere I feel that, completely being on the other extreme of not getting married is also not the right advice. But how do we strike a balance? How do we really make our boys, aware, and how do we make them prepared that, God forbid, if they land up in a situation like this, suicide should not be, not even the first or not even the last thought.
Anas, see, while there are so many other reasons for somebody actually taking a step such as suicide. But yes, family issues, marriage problems, and love affair, as the data shows, is one of the very, very big reason. So, and in the past one entire decade, I've seen so many men dying by suicide when they are facing their matrimonial issues, or they are slapped with false cases. But what they feel is that, if I actually die, or if I'm not there tomorrow, all my cases are going to just get finished, and that will be the end of all the problems for my family. And that's the reason most of the guys, they when even we've seen a lot of suicide videos, suicide notes, wherein they feel that okay, my cases are going to get over, and that does not happen. Most of these cases are the cases against the state, and they still go on. The cases against the families, they go on, whether that man is there or he's not there. The rest of the accused are still accused in that cases, and the turmoil of the entire family actually, it goes to a different level altogether, because they lose out all their strength to fight back also. Even if they've done nothing, they are innocent. So I would say that if ever in your life, because of the reason that you've been falsely accused in a case, or the fear that you will have to probably go to jail, or you will have to run around in the courts, if ever this thought comes to you, just pick up a phone and call anybody who's a confidant, or who you trust. It is very important to actually share, which is something that men generally do not do. They keep things to themselves. They do not tell what they're going through, and then it keeps on building up. And I've seen strongest of the people with strongest of the willpowers, they in their weakest, some weak moment, they die, and they take those extreme steps. So I would just say that just pick up a phone, talk to a friend, or there are NGOs these days. You can just Google. There are a number of NGOs. We ourselves are running a helpline which serves as a suicide helpline. The number of our helpline is 888 where we constantly get calls from such men and their family members who are suicidal, because of the reason that they are going through some matrimonial disputes, or they have been falsely accused in some cases, and all these fears which are mounted upon them by the society, that they will have to go to jail, and all of those things. So just pick up your phone, call us, call our helpline, or there are other helplines also. If you're thinking that there is some depression that you're going through, there is AIMS helpline you can Google. There is Women's helpline that you can Google. So there are a few helpline for psychiatric counseling also. And if it is about false cases, false matrimonial cases, false rape cases, or molestation cases, within our men's rights movement, there are a number of NGOs where they can reach out to. So the most important thing is that you have to reach out to somebody and talk to people. We have handled so many cases in the past where people today, they say that only because we spoke to you, only because we reached out to you and we were able to share, that's the only reason that we are alive today. So men will have to come out of their closet, and if they are feeling, if they are going through such feeling, they have to start sharing. They have to actually come out of this that narrative of that you're not a man enough if you're crying, you're not a man enough if you are sharing your problems. So you have to come out of that entire societal narrative, so to say, and you have to start sharing your problems, and that's how you will be able to resolve the issues. And the suicide is never a solution to any problem, be it the false cases or any problems in your life.
Absolutely. And I think to sum it up, a marriage is not like a dead end in your life. Some people can have the best of a marriage, and sometimes the marriages don't work out. And that will be one phase in your life, and which could take you to the extreme of getting these thoughts. But as you rightly said, I think the only thing that is missing is people don't speak up. They, especially
Absolutely.
the men, they keep keeping
Don't
things
make your
within.
life just about one relationship. Your life is not about one relationship or your marriage. Your life is way beyond your relationship or your failed marriage. There is so much else that you are here for. So
And there are so
if
many
something did
success
not
stories
work,
that
does
you
not
can
mean your marriage.
vouch for, Amit. There are so many success stories where absolute suicidal tendency men have come out and they're doing so well in their lives now.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
there is a bright side to it as well. And as you rightly pointed out, don't think that suicide is the end of all your problems. We've seen parents of such men, families of such men, only going through worse, running around courts later on.
Actually, yeah.
So please spare a thought for them before you think of taking any such step. And I just want to conclude this video that, I mean, men's rights as a movement, we all are doing our bit wherever we can. But I think as every individual who's watching this, please share these videos, whatever articles that we have, to spread the word in society. Because unless we create awareness that these things are happening in society, people are not even aware unless they go through these issues. And unless society speaks up about this, no lawmaker is really going to bother to bring any change, at least in the next 1 decade that I look at. So please speak about it at whichever forum that you can. Share these thoughts, have balanced debates when it comes to gender. Don't be on either extremes. And if you come across anybody who is having these suicidal tendencies, please reach out to NGOs. We have all the NGOs mentioned on the homepage of our website. I'll leave that link below. So please speak up, please reach out, and we are all there to help you in whichever way we can. And thank you, Amit. Thanks for always being there, always
Sure,
sparing
Nas.
time when we are
Thank you.
there. And
Thank you.
thank you so much for whatever you're doing.
Thanks.